Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, July the 20th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Your first daily dose of happy for this beautiful Friday. At least the Friday around here is beautiful. We got another straight day of gorgeous weather going on after getting the humid heat wave behind us. So I'm looking forward to getting out again. Yesterday I got out, Tom, for the first time in a few days. My knee is definitely getting stronger, and I wanted to test it, and it passed the test. I had a good walk, full walk, so that was good, and I want to get it out and do it again. I'm excited.
Wow. How far did you go?
Just 4 miles, but that's like
4 miles?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I came back with only minimal swelling, so, it's definitely improving. It's getting better and better. And I was telling Wendy yesterday afternoon, a huge breakthrough I had talking with Joel yesterday, because I've had things going on with the business that were causing me difficulties. And without getting into the details of it, the bottom line is I realized I was projecting my own fears onto other people in the business. I didn't know it. And once with Joel kind of helped me break through on that accidentally. He didn't realize he was helping me, but he said something that kind of cued that in my mind. And once I realized that, whole bunch of resistance flowed away. It was really, really nice. So yeah,
that's really great.
Yeah. Good day yesterday. Good day.
So, well, that's good.
Yeah. How are you doing? How's your week been?
It's been good. I don't have any complaints. It's certainly been an interesting week of kind of a lot of realizations about my own worthiness, which is today's topic. It's been good. And I'm looking forward to the continual unfolding of these revelations that are happening in my life about how I treat myself and how I don't allow myself to be aligned. I guess that's what it comes down to sometimes, and how I do allow myself to be aligned at times.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean. I mean, it's easy to not treat yourself well. That's the part that still amazes me.
Yeah.
It's so easy, because there are times that we give ourselves a hard time, and we don't even realize we're giving ourselves a hard time. Like when I discovered I was projecting onto someone else. That's giving myself a hard time. That's really not giving them a hard time. That's me. I'm
right.
Basically stepping on my own toes. And I didn't know that I was doing it. I didn't realize it. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Stuff is sort of built into us from our childhoods, I think, so much of it. Because if you have a parent who's telling you that they don't like your behavior and stop doing that, and you've got to get your act together so you can be, effective in the world, and you can't behave that way. Those kind of messages, they're coming from a person who's out of alignment with their own vortex, who's angry and, just striving to get their alignment from us. And, so we're a little kid and we're already come in aligned, and then we're trained into this other way of relating to ourselves in order to please this parent or this teacher.
Right.
And I think because of that, I mean, there's a voice in me. There's just this, it almost seems like, well, it's just built in, and get up in the morning sometimes and I'm not aligned, but I just accept the fact that I'm feeling bad for some reason, and that's just sort of, it's sort of like it's deep in there, and it really can change. But when it seems like a feeling of being out of sorts is just normal, then I know that something that's unnormal.
That's unnormal. I like that term. That's good.
Yeah. The normal being, aligned with your vortex, aligned with your higher self.
So is that what what the motivation was? What was the motivation behind today's topic? I mean, did you have something in particular in mind, or just you thought it was a good one because it is a good one?
Well, both. It did dawn on me that, I always sort of look when I'm picking a topic, I think of it sometimes even several days in advance, like, well, what's up for me? What's up for me? And for some reason, the word worthiness really resonated, and I wasn't sure entirely why, because a lot of the time over the last 4 or 5 years that I've been really into the Abraham Law of Attraction work, I've made the assumption that I've crossed into the world of worthiness, and I've kind of no longer think of myself as anything other than worthy. But then I realized that this thing that's going on with me and my my partner, this woman in my life now, a lot of it is putting in my face this understanding that why would I create difficulties in this relationship if I felt in alignment, if I felt connected to who I really am. I wouldn't be critical of her. I wouldn't create, I don't think I would create the waves that I've been creating in this relationship. And I don't totally blame myself for it, but it made me think really what's happening. A lot of this is about my deeper sense of my own self-worth, my deeper sense of my own love for myself, and how much am I really in alignment with my vortex self, with that, with my source self.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think there's a crucial adjustment going on inside me that right now in my life. And that's one thing that relationships point out to us a lot. They become, at least for me, I see a really strong mirror to where am I really at with myself? If I'm bringing a certain thing into the relationship, it's reflecting my vibration. Like you said with your employees, that you realize that it's your vibration that's bringing a certain thing to the table. And so I'm looking at that in a deeper way, even like getting up this morning and feeling, I think I was kind of just already saying this, but getting up this morning and feeling out of sorts, and I realize I just don't often feel in love with my life and worthy. It's worthy. It's like, am I worthy of feeling really good
and having
everything be okay? Well, I am worthy, but it's a matter of, am I acting that way? Or am I holding myself apart from my alignment? Because that's what we do. Something causes us to hold ourselves apart from feeling truly good. So that's my
okay. Well, then
soliloquy on that.
Then that's a good one. That's really good. So if we start from there, let's start with the basics. Let's go right to the definition. Worthiness. What are we talking about when we say worthy? I mean, because when you say that, I mean, on the one hand, I know what you're talking about. On the other hand, why wouldn't we be worthy? What's the worthy part? Where does that fit in?
Well, I think it's worthy of being the aligned being that I am, the truly happy, the truly contented, the truly sourced, connected to source person. And if I'm not, if I'm feeling anything other than that, you could call that unworthiness. Why wouldn't I be embracing who I fully am? Well, because I've got some bogus thought that's telling me something else, and it's causing me to feel guilt or depression or sadness or otherwise out of alignment.
Okay, so unworthiness is out of alignment, worthiness is in alignment. So we have a new term. That's okay. I can go with that. It just seems strange to me. I mean, why wouldn't I be worthy? It's almost like there's some standard I'm supposed to meet or something when we use a word like that. That's why I wondered.
Yeah, and that probably is what it is. Some subtle program that's running from our childhood that says we're not meeting a certain standard because we got criticized a lot when we were young for not being in a certain place by people who were out of alignment and were wanting us to conform to something that was artificial, was a conditional way of being connected to who we really are. And so we formed a belief in ourselves as we're less than something. We're not enough of something if we're not conforming to what our parents or teachers thought we should be. And so, I think I've been striving a lot throughout my whole life to meet up to some standards that really were not ever true alignment with source. And had I been raised by parents and teachers who only were in alignment, I think I would have a different idea of what okayness is. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, I do, yeah. And in fact, as I'm sitting here thinking about the word worthiness and worthy has at its root the word worth. Mm-hmm. In other words, there's like a suggestion, an unspoken suggestion that worthy means you're worth something. Like if you're not worthy, you're not worth anything. And when you express it that way, it sounds Machiavellian. I mean, really, it sounds pretty mean-spirited. Like, oh, well, you're not worthy. Thank you so
but
much.
we got a lot of that. I think I got a lot of that from my parents, especially my mom, like of, oh, what are you doing that for? And I mean, I remember my dad saying, what kind of a nut are you?
I'm a
Things like
peanut.
that. Huh?
I'm a peanut.
Yeah, right. And I wish I just would have said that. Dad, I'm a peanut. But instead I got these heavy messages from my parents that if you're not a certain way, you're not enough and you're not good and you're not behaving properly. And there was a lot of admonition to keep your act together in a certain way, but it fit into their expectation of, they were doing it out of love. They wanted me to grow up right.
Well, there's where I understand exactly what you mean, but there's where I think Abraham does a nice job of taking issue. Because what Abraham points out is that whenever someone else wants you to behave a certain way so that they feel better, it's really their issue. It's not your issue.
Oh, for sure.
So describing it the way you described it is certainly the way we are taught to learn it, but really it's not true. Really, what they wanted you to do had nothing to do with them wanting you to be better or, growing up to have a successful life or, achieving what they had in mind. It really had to do with them feeling better in that moment.
Yes. Yeah. When you really look at it, that's exactly what it did.
Yeah.
Even all the way back from when you're a little baby and they want you to stop crying or,
So as it turns out, worthiness or wanting people to be worthy or judging people as worthy really has to do with you must behave a certain way or I don't feel good.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, right. That really helped me a lot.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Appreciate that one. Right. See you down the trail.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine being raised by somebody who was just in alignment with their higher self, consistently, and they would teach you love and appreciation and they wouldn't guide you from when you do something quote unquote wrong. They would guide you from helping you see, are you following the path of your most alignment? Are you following the path of what's pleasing you, what feels good, what you love, and they would encourage that.
Well, even what you just said there, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it because it's certainly the way we express things, but you used a phrase that I have long had a really difficult time with, being raised.
Yeah.
What's the idea behind raising somebody? When you think about it, children don't get raised, they grow. It's not like the parents are, weaving their magic spell and making the child get bigger. That's a
big myth out there.
It is a myth. You don't
it's
raise
really
a child.
Strong.
The idea of raising a child is ludicrous when you look at it up close. The fact is the child grows. That's what children do. It has nothing to do with the parent. It's not something that the parent should take credit for. I raised the child so well. You didn't do squat. The child did the growing. I mean, you have influence on them, but you're not the one who made them grow. Come on, let go. Let go of that idea. That idea is craziness. And once again, that's an idea that spawns from the place of, I need to feel good, and so raising the child will make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it's about the parent again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well, wait a minute. When is the parent about the child? None of these phrases that we've talked about so far actively address the very primary concept of being there for the child.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about being there for the parent.
Yeah, and coming to the child from a place of alignment and I love that how so many times Abraham has said, if you're the parent and you've got this difficulty with your child and it's turning into this battle, first check in with yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you at? And so many times I've heard them say, you go take a time out.
Yeah, right.
The parent, you go to your room until you feel aligned, go get aligned, then come back and look at the child's behavior and what's going on and reassess it from the place of alignment rather than just trying to get your alignment by disciplining the child.
Now, there's also a kind of a flaw in what I said, because I talked about being there for the child. And strictly speaking, we are all here for ourselves. I mean, we can't live someone else's life for them. So,
It's true.
because we can't live someone else's life for them, we can't live the child's life for them. We can't make the child's life better by living for them. What we can do is set the example. And that's really what parents do, no matter what their intention is. They're setting an example. So the question becomes, what example do we want to set? And the example, I think, if we needed to summarize it in one sentence, the example would be: here is a model of how to learn to live in a way that promotes your life, that moves your life forward, and that helps you to grow into the kind of human being you most want to be, while at the same time respecting other people growing into the kinds of human beings they want to be. That's the way I would phrase it. I don't know how you'd phrase it, but.
No, that's great. I don't know how I do phrase it. I mean, I phrase it the way I've been saying, which is
right, yeah.
Get in alignment, and then, that's alignment trumps everything. So if you're going to be a parent, yes, you just want to be in alignment. If you want to be a human being, you want to be in alignment. That's all True. It really comes down to.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, if the parent is living in their joy and their alignment of feeling good as much as they possibly can, then that's the best they can do for anybody.
Right. Yeah.
There's
actually nothing better. Is there anything better than being in alignment? I can't think of anything.
No, that's okay. All there really is, and that's why it trumps everything, It's just, and that's worthiness. Worthiness is being in alignment and feeling good. And then you feel like, the world is your oyster. I mean, anything's possible, really. And when you start seeing yourself manifest from that place, the things start working out in your life the way you really want them to, because you feel so good, then there is no greater sense of the fact that you're worthy. You're just who you're meant to be. You're this infinite being in a human body, and you're watching how life responds to your connectivity, to how much you're connected to your heart, to your soul, to your love, to your feeling good. One thing I was seeing, Abraham said, if you're out of alignment, find a dog to love, find a cat to love, find a child to love, and see what that feels like, to just feel that unequivocal love, and then aim it at yourself. See what it's like for you to feel that towards yourself, that same, unconditional love, you might say.
And the way you framed today's topic, the feeling of worthiness. What is the feeling of worthiness? And you suggested that, well, perhaps worthiness simply feels like alignment, which was a great insight, I think. Because I think worthiness, well, first of all, we are all worthy. And second of all, when we recognize that we are worthy, we all have value, we all have worth. Well, since that's the case, if we recognize that, and if we act as if that's true, the only way to do that is if you're in alignment. You can't do that when you're not feeling good, because alignment is where you feel good. Out of alignment is where you don't feel good. So the only way that you can actually feel worthy is if you feel good. That is in alignment, right?
Yes. And any other thoughts are bogus thoughts.
Yeah.
So the thing is, how do you get back to the place where you know that you are in alignment? And of course, it's the nature of every single podcast we do and every single conversation we have is
right.
Like, how do you get back into alignment, just to feel good and to be all that we are, seeing the world through the eyes of Source.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mentioned to you on Monday that I had gotten back into trying to do this journaling thing for the purpose of, getting myself, basically propagandizing myself, helping myself believe through repetition that all good things are happening in my life, and hoping in that way to regain some alignment and be able to stay in alignment, to stay in that happy place as much as possible. And the challenge I set for myself was, well, I'd done 2 days in a row, right? Well, let's see if I can keep going with that. Well, I did. I have kept going. I've been going this week. And in fact, I've taken it a step further. Today, I started publishing my journals on the LOA Today website. So there's actually now a category for Walt's Journal.
Really?
Yeah, people can go look there.
I got to check that out. How many days now? You said 4?
Well, I did it since Sunday. So there's, I think, 6 days there. And then there was also the first day, which was back on June 30th. So remember, there was that gap between the 30th and when I did the second one. So they're all in there. So I think it's 7 entries right now.
So what's it feeling like to you? What are you finding?
Well, I mean, the first feeling was I can't make it all. I can't put all my personal stuff out there, so I had to edit it. I had to take this stuff and say, okay, we're going to change full names to initials, and we're going to take out details that are really just for me and not for the public. So that was the first step, feeling good about what I was putting out there. And once I, limited it to what would be reasonable to put into a public sphere, that felt good. I I can't say I have any other definite feelings yet about publishing it because it's such a new thing. I mean, literally, I just took the last 6 days worth plus today and put it on the website today. So it's so fresh and new. It's like, I'm not sure what to feel yet.
But are you, when you do it on your own and when you're writing, are you feeling that it's helping you feel aligned?
I think it's too early to say. I believe it probably is. On the other hand, there was one day this week, and I even labeled that particular post "Tough Day," where every second or third line that I wrote was an upstream thought, to use the upstream downstream metaphor.
Yeah.
And, then I'd try to put another downstream thought or two down, and I would, and then I immediately felt like I had to qualify it with an upstream thought. It's like, oh, geez, I knew that was going on. I knew I was really in a rough place, alignment-wise.
Yes.
I wrote that yesterday morning, just before my podcast episode with Joel, and during that, and in fact, I wrote about this today. During that episode that I did with Joel, I know I've told you this offline a number of times. Joel and I come up with our topic with about 30 seconds to go.
Right.
we don't spend a whole lot of time on it. And normally what I do is I go to his Facebook timeline and I ask him, not ask him, but I look there to see, is there anything really interesting that he posted that gives me an idea? And normally there is. Yesterday there wasn't one. And he said, yeah, I haven't really posted much lately. And I said, so we need a topic. What do we do? And he says, well, how about something about perspective? I said, yeah, perspective. That's good. Maybe perspective, use it or lose it. He said, yeah, great. I said, okay, we got a topic. Here we go. So we did it on that topic. And we're going along. Yeah, it was a good topic, too. It was really good. And we're going along and we're sharing ideas. And he's telling stories and so forth. And about 45 minutes into it, I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but he started making some commentary that sounded very similar to me to what I was going through with my thing. I called it this great big knot that was in my stomach. And this knot was still very present there. I mean, I was feeling good with the podcast, so in that sense the knot was dissolving, but it was still there, and I knew it was kind of hanging around. And then he said this, I don't remember what he said, but he said this one thing that made me realize that I was projecting onto other people around me my angst about what was going on and presuming that they were feeling the same way. And when you say it that way, you realize, well, that can't possibly be true. But nevertheless, I was doing that unintentionally and unconsciously, in a sense. I just wasn't aware. I was assuming that everyone else was feeling what I was feeling. Once I posed that idea out, kind of put it out in the open, all of a sudden the knot started to dissolve. So has the journaling helped? I would say yes, it did. I mean, on the one hand, it gave me a way to recognize that I had this knot going on. In a second way, it helped me to frame a question, because the night before I did the podcast with Joel, Louise was off in Rhode Island. A friend of hers, her parent had died, her mother had died, so she was off consoling her. So I was alone. I was on my own. And as I was getting ready for bed, I basically was not shouting, but I was calling out to the universe and calling to my inner being, or the rest of me, as I like to call it. I was saying, I need some answers here. I was frustrated. I was expressing my frustration, saying, I need some answers. I need them fast. I need them now. And the next morning that happened. So,
cool.
Law of attraction, definitely at work there. Inner being definitely responding. No doubt about it. So has the journaling helped? Apparently.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was looking into about this stuff about worthiness with Abraham's stuff, and they were saying it's a practice vibration. It's something that you practice yourself in, and it's something you bestow upon yourself. Worthiness is something that you decide that you're worthy, and you practice that vibration of alignment. But there's no one who's going to give it to you or withhold it from you. It's basically you can have anything you want if you allow yourself to have it. And so anything that I'm complaining about in my life of not having enough of this or enough of that, or that I've got a problem with this relationship or this, career thing or whatever, it's all just whether or not I'll let myself be worthy of having the alignment that is really who I really am,
Yep.
And so it's a practice. So when you do the journaling, or when you reminded me of when you were doing that mirror work, or when I get out my appreciation journal, which I had this one client recently tell me that her whole life has changed because I introduced her to the idea of the appreciation journal, and she's been consistently doing it and realizing that by being in this place of appreciation, she changes her vibration so much. And so it's just like, what's your attitude towards your own love of yourself and your own, my own ability to just feel like I'm going to give myself the life that I want. I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt on everything. And if I'm still feeling this gap that I don't feel good and something feels incomplete and something feels off, that's where my work is. My work is to then, look at that stuff and go, what's that about? Why would I, like this morning, why would I get up in the morning and the first thing I feel is I'm a screw up. I'm not, because I have this problem going on in my relationship this week, and I, or starting, recently, because I'm starting to own more of the reservations I have about the relationship and talk about them with my partner, and realizing that what is this stuff about, and it's, and that's where I really question this idea of worthiness. Is there a deeper sense that I just don't want to let myself have a life that just flows, that works, and have that trust that everything that I need and want is in my vortex. I've just, got to relax, let myself have it. And why would I still fight with myself in any way? Why would I create disharmony when I know that my real nature is harmony?
It's a good question, yeah. And I need to ask you, what is an appreciation journal? I mean, specifically, is it where you put in stuff that you appreciate that's already going on in your life?
You can do it any way you want to, and I do it different ways. One way is, Abraham calls it the book of positive aspects. I call it my book of appreciation, but it's basically anything that's happening right now in my life that I can look at and say that I find appreciation for it. Everything from the weather to, my appearance, to how I feel inside, thoughts I'm having about my life. And of course, then things I appreciate about others, things I appreciate about my home. So anywhere that I can find a sense of value that I want to acknowledge, it gets me more in that realm than in the realm of the thoughts that say something's wrong, or I don't like something about somebody else.
It's now appreciation. Huh? It's what is appreciation. It's appreciation of what is rather than trying to create something new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like if you had your employees and you sat down with your book of appreciation, your book of positive aspects, you say, what are some of, what's some of the positive aspects of this whole situation and of these people? You could take a particular person and you write out, all the things that you can imagine that you appreciate about that person. And it channels us away from the things that we don't appreciate and that are bothering us and that we feel is some kind of a negative quality that person has, or a quality that we don't approve of, or something we wish they would change, and of course, Abraham says, and law of attraction says, focus on the thing you want instead of the thing you don't want. And you will watch more and more of the thing you want coming alive, and the things you don't want will more and more dissipate. So if you got a health problem, you get your book of appreciation and you start writing all the things you appreciate about your health and everything you love about your body and your mind and your health. And then the things that are the symptoms you don't like will begin to dissipate more and more. You just don't feed that side of yourself.
That makes sense.
When I was learning to do channeling over the last year, this person who was helping me learn it, this class I was in, she read some of my channeling and she said, well, out of these, 4 pages you've given me, there's a few places in here where I think you're really channeling. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, well, in this other stuff, you're saying, things that you that you feel that are coming through you that are positive, but you're qualifying all like you were saying with these statements that are actually more the downside of things. Like how would I put that? I'd be like, I might say something like, even though you still struggle and strive, you are moving more and more into your alignment with your higher self or something. Right. And she said, every time you go to that place of you still struggle and strive and all that, you're not really channeling your aligned self. Your aligned self your source self doesn't see things from any perspective other than perfection, you might say, of how everything is beautiful. Everything is working out. And it's the part of us that sees what's not working out and focuses on that is the unaligned part.
That's a good point, because the only disalignment, let's put it that way, the only disalignment that happens is on the physical side of us.
The physical side?
Yeah. I think of us as having two sides. We have our non-physical side and our physical side. Our physical side is us here in the physical reality.
Yeah, 3D.
The 3D side. The non-physical us is the rest of us, or the inner being, or the connection to source, or whatever you want to call it. But it's the non-physical side that sees us perfectly as the physical side that says, oh, well, I got to qualify this way and that way because these things aren't working out just the way I wanted them to, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. That looks at the contrast and then talks about it. It's one thing to recognize contrast, I think, but how much do we want to talk about the quote unquote problem? The thing that's giving us resistance, the blockage. Like, I think it's so classic when we think about physical symptoms. If we are having the headache or the pain in your knee, how much do you focus on the knee and think about what's not working about it, and how much do you focus on what it feels like when your knee is healthy? Like, I have one side of my psoas muscles, which are the big muscles, that cause our body to bend, and in the stomach area and everything. And one, I probably said this before, but on the right, on the left side, it's a very healthy psoas muscle. On the right side, it's a psoas muscle that's been very constricted a lot of my life because of all the heavy duty lifting and hard work I do with my right side of my body. I'm right side tended, so I've developed, through years and years of heavy work, I've developed an overly tight psoas muscle on my right side. But when I go out for walks and things, and that muscle starts to tighten up, I just keep focusing on the muscle on my left side that is just fine. It's completely smooth. It's just no pain. It's just everything's working just as if I was 20 years old. And so I realized that I'm changing that relationship to the one on the right side that has been overly tight by just focusing on the one that's loose and kind of talking to them and saying, you two can balance each other out. Mm-hmm. I'm allowing myself to have a relaxed, psoas muscle, both of them be equally relaxed and equally helpful in my walking and my standing up straight and my bending, everything to be balanced. So how can we more and more focus on what is working and put our enjoyment there and our alignment there? And then when the things come up that are contrast, just don't make as big of a deal out of them. That's what I think is important to me. Don't make a big deal out of the things that I think are the problem.
Oh, I agree with that, because doing the opposite of that is making mountains out of molehills.
Exactly.
That's where that's the part that we're really good at. That's the part that we've been practicing a lifetime on. And
exactly.
I think at some point we can say, you know what, I've learned that. I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah. But we got, what I'm seeing lately this week is that I got so good at it that it's like, I think of it as a default state. I don't even think about it. It just, that's the thing of getting out of bed this morning and feeling out of sorts. It's like, it's a default state that I think is just, I'm entrapped by. I think that I'm under the influence of this state that feels like I'm incomplete in some way and I don't have enough of what I want in some way, or I'm causing myself a problem in some way. But it believes it so strongly that it seems like I have a problem. and in reality, I'm creating that right in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm somehow feeding it by a monologue that I've got going with myself that's been going on for so long that I take it for granted, I guess.
Oh, sure. Well, I think we all do.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to me is that when we are, when we're in that place, in that funny place, that place like you woke up in today, the
Mm-hmm.
last thing we think about, if we're not Abraham devotees, if we're just average normal people, the last thing we think about is feeling good, right? We want to
Yeah,
feel
well,
good,
people
but
feel good in other ways other than Abraham, but yes, it is. If we're trained to be so right attuned towards that what's not working, then yeah, the last thing that we understand to think about is feeling good. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, even though the request that we kind of put out is, well, I want to feel better.
Yes.
And we've almost put it out secondhand, like, well, of course I want to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
without saying. It goes without feeling it, which of course
Uh-huh.
is not the right answer. The right answer is, yeah, you got to feel the way you want to feel. You got to go for the feeling good part. So somebody who doesn't know these teachings, they're kind of at a disadvantage. One of the reasons we do the podcast. But for somebody who does know the teachings, it's a reminder that, well, we are in control. And so even if we are currently experiencing something like you were describing, it's a long-standing behavior, it's a default pattern, it's something that we've been living with for the longest time, something that we learned from a very early age. We were taught it by parents, by teachers, by other adults in our lives, by peers. Despite the fact that all that came from the past, we don't actually live it in the past. I mean,
Right.
sometimes we
Right.
describe it as bringing the past into the present, but
Mm-hmm.
literally we are living it in the present.
We're keeping it alive.
We're
Yeah.
keeping it alive in the present, which
Yeah.
also means that's actually some good news because it also means
Oh,
that
yeah.
if we're listening to and looking at and experiencing that and living it like the past is the present, it also means we can choose not to live that in the present. We can choose to live presently in the present, to not be too redundant there, to actually choose a different way of feeling because it's all in the present anyway.
Yes. Yes. I think that's where the whole crux of it is, and I think the reason that we don't let ourselves have the lives that we want in whatever area that we're feeling this resistance and this fear or this doubt or this worry or this sadness or disappointment or blame or shame or guilt or whatever it is because there's a part of us that has been so trained to think that we're not worthy. We're not, that we're not, we don't really believe we could have it. That's kind of what unworthiness sometimes is. It's like, well, I don't really believe I could have that level of happiness, that level of a successful relationship, that level of money, that, doing that work I really love, having a body that's truly that healthy. I don't really believe I could really have it. Um, and so I just accept that I'm in this state of constantly yearning for it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and yearning and unworthiness are the same thing. They're just like you're wanting to be there. And this is how I think I spend a large part of my life is that I want to have this thing be better and that thing finally work out. And I want to get there. And I know I want that. And it's in my vortex, but why is it not coming quicker? Why is it taking a long time for some of these things to become the way I would really say I want them? And that's why I'm looking at worthiness. Why would I think I'm not worthy of having it? Surely I am. Logically, of course I'm worthy of having it. But then why is it not coming? And I think it's because that more locked in vibration from when I was a little kid, which are very powerful vibrations that get locked in, is saying, still that, well, you really can't have it for some reason. You don't believe it could really happen. Could it
Mm-hmm.
really be that good?
Yeah. Well, you made an interesting point there. Yearning equals unworthiness. I mean, that's not quite what you said, but it's pretty close.
Yeah,
And it's not
they
one that.
feel similar. I think.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
essentially, what we're saying is, if you are in any way in your own mind unworthy, therefore, what?
You're not letting yourself really let in what's possible for yourself,
Yeah.
because you're just not good enough to have it on some level. That's one of the big things in psychology, like so much of the work I've done over the years, and whether it's in a group or one-on-one psychology kind of stuff back in the day, where there was so much, it came down to almost so many things. The one statement was, I'm not enough of something in some way. I'm not enough of something. And because I'm not, I don't deserve to have the particular thing I really want. And this to me is like the crux behind so much of the discord or the unfulfillment that I create in my life, is because there's still something in there that says, well, somehow I'm not yet doing enough to have what I want. I better do more affirmations. I better do more of my book of appreciation, and I better study Abraham more. And it's like where do you get to the point where you are enough that you can have the money you want to have, you can have your relationships really work, and whatever it is, the full on expression of what we say is in our vortex and what we say we really want. And that to me is where the thing worthiness comes in, because why would we have this sustained waiting to have the thing we want? And I think in my own self, I can just say, I don't fully believe I deserve it, on some level.
Right.
I mean, it's just a guess,
Right, right.
I must just think I can't have it for some reason. Why? If
It's a
it's
strange
there.
concept to me. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I've certainly heard other people present it. Many of my co-hosts, I'd probably say almost all of them, maybe even all of them, would argue very much the same thing, would suggest the same thing, that there is a feeling of unworthiness that people have that makes them believe they are not worthy to have their dreams and desires. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. But by the same token, at the same time, when I look at my own times where you might describe it as unworthiness, where I feel like my goals and dreams and aspirations aren't coming true,
mm-hmm.
I can't honestly say it feels to me like I'm unworthy. What it feels to me is it just doesn't work. It's where I doubt the law of attraction. It's where I doubt that all the stuff actually works the way I know it works. Mm-hmm. So it makes me wonder, am I in some way blocking myself from realizing that I really do feel unworthy, or is it not really a question of unworthiness for me? And I don't know the answer to that.
Or does it matter what you call it?
Probably doesn't matter at all. No.
I don't think it really does. The word worthiness can have, that's why I put in that little blurb on describing today's podcast, that it has so many possible ways it could be defined, that idea. But I think that the key for me, like I just said, it comes back to, what is it that I locked in when I was a child or a baby, or whenever I locked it in, those really formative years, that is still possibly affecting, the decisions I'm making, because I got this really deep impression that it's not easy to get what I want. It doesn't, I have to pay a price, and if you don't pay that price, somehow or if you're haven't been good enough, you haven't done enough, you can't yet have what you want. I don't know, I'm just feeling that's where the crux of not allowing myself to, because it doesn't make any sense that I wouldn't let myself have, if I truly believe it's in my vortex, the amount of money I want, or the amount of clients I want, or the health that I want, why wouldn't I just let it in? Mm-hmm. Why would there be a period of years of striving to get there, and slowly getting there, inch by inch, step by step? Well, that would indicate that I have a really strong belief that it's hard and it takes a lot. And then the other side of that is, maybe I believe that I haven't done enough. I'm not good enough. You could say either done enough or good enough. And maybe, a lot of people don't feel it's about good enough. It's just that I haven't made enough effort yet. But they kind of go hand in hand in my mind. And so I'm just open. I have an open wondering about, how much do I just simply think I'm not worthy of it? How much of that came from my childhood?
It's quite possible. I like what you said in response to my question when you said something like, it doesn't really matter what caused it. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what manifestational sense it feels like, whether it feels like worthiness or
Yeah.
unworthiness
Yeah.
or just disbelief in or belief in how the law of attraction works or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what the cause is. I think that's a really great point because it doesn't matter. I mean,
Hmm.
in one sense, it can matter if you have something that is so heavily blocking you, you need to examine it in order to get rid of it. And
Yeah.
you need to get a sense of what's going on to find out, like Wendy says, to play with it and probe it and touch it and see if you can
Hmm.
find where the lie is that's built into it, which
Exactly.
is what happened to me yesterday. But I also think by the same token, all situations where we doubt or feel worthiness, unworthiness, or whatever it might be, are not necessarily situations where there's that great big knot. It may be just something a lot simpler than that. And if it is something a lot simpler, maybe it's just about deciding to feel worthy and taking steps to feel worthy. Maybe it's about deciding to feel, yeah, I trust it, and then taking steps to trust it. That's kind of what's behind my new journaling approach that I'm taking. I'm not really trying to write as much about what is, although inevitably I do, just because all of my thought process is still very heavily associated with what is. But my goal with it is to write about what I want to be, what I want to change things
Yeah.
into. And
Yeah.
I figure if I can do that, provided I don't run into a block like I ran into yesterday, and which I overcame with some help, provided that that doesn't happen, I can kind of steamroll all the concerns about, oh, geez, I wonder what's holding me back and all that kind of thing. I don't, because if there's not an imminent thing, if there's not a thing going on right now where I can just feel myself being blocked by
Hmm.
myself,
Yeah.
then why spend all the time worrying about worrying? That's the way I'm looking at it, right?
Well, sure. And I'm finding that there's this balance in each of us that we need to each sort of feel out, like Wendy was saying about play with, about what's the balance between how entrenched this thing is in me and how much I can just, as you say, steamroll over it, and I think it's like Abraham said, what you focus on, you get more of. Why would you focus on the problem when you could focus on the solution? We've talked about this so many times,
Sure.
and yet there is a point to be said in my mind that if I wake up hundreds of mornings in a row with the same sense that things are not yet the way I want them in my life, then at some point it's not just a matter of more affirmations and more getting into the vibration of appreciation. However, that is incredibly important to do. It's vital to do, and it's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful to do
Oh yeah.
because I get into great feeling places, and then I I don't even notice the fact that I've got a quote unquote problem. But if I consistently go back to this quote unquote problem state, then that part of me says, okay, why do I keep doing that? How come that's been going on for 20 years or 40 years or 60 years, or like I've felt that way. And so then I look and go, oh, this is something I really locked in when I was a kid, because my parents really did not encourage me to be in alignment. They encouraged me to do everything to please others and to do everything to look good and to do everything to please them. And so now I'm trying to please myself and I don't even know how. I'm just trying to use the same methods I learned when I was a kid, and I'm not letting myself have this full on abundance that is really possible. And had I been raised in a way where I was just encouraged into my abundance and my allowing myself to have everything that pleased me, then I would be naturally doing that. And so I want to just look at the pattern, play with it, and allow it to dissipate. Um, so I'm still learning. I mean, I'm
Well, I
definitely
think we
still
all
learning
are.
how all this, how do you do all this in a way how do I do all this in a way that I give myself the gift of the life that is of what's in my vortex,
Mm.
because it's right there. The vortex is not some distant thing that, oh, maybe in 5 years I'll finally have the extra $300,000 that I want. It doesn't have to be like that. It is that $300,000 is very, very close to me, but for some reason there's something that I'm holding it at an arm's length from myself and thinking that it's a journey. It's a big journey to get there.
So this points to what's going on. Excuse me. What's going on with me with this new journaling that I'm doing, where I'm trying to journal about what I want to be, and spend as little time as I can on what is. Although inevitably I spend quite a bit on what is. But in the process of doing that, on those days where I'm feeling good, where I'm feeling in the vortex, where I'm feeling in alignment, all that kind of stuff, when I'm feeling that way, I can see it in the text of what I write. The text is very consistently, it's clean, positive, good feeling stuff. And in fact, I even note on some of those posts that it's a work of fiction that I'm writing because it's a fiction I'm trying to bring myself to believe more and more so that I can actually attract it. But the simple fact that I am successfully line after line putting in all positive, high feeling, good feeling statements tells me I'm there. On the day, and this was yesterday, on the day when I was writing and every third line was an upstream statement. Every third line was a qualifier that, except, well, if this isn't working out right.
Right.
That's my clue that, now I got a block in the way. So, and this kind of aligns with what Wendy talks about. Wendy talks about you don't go looking for problems. You keep looking for all the ways to be in alignment. And then when a problem occurs, now you've all of a sudden found a resistance point, and now you deal with the resistance point. I think it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely finding that I'm wanting to. My biggest thing right now, this particular week, is in the next number of days, is I'm wanting to, quote unquote, troubleshoot these aspects of myself that give me trouble. Especially in this way with this relationship I'm in. I'm wanting to notice what this thing that this niggling thing that comes up that bothers me and bothers the relationship, like what's the nature of it, that I can then not just overlook it, but it's sort of like when you have an emotional message that's a difficult emotion, it's telling you something, and it's definitely giving you a very clear message that Source is saying, this is not how Source sees this. And the level of my pain is to the degree to which I'm out of alignment with how Source sees it. And so, yes, I want to get back into alignment as quick as I can, but I don't want to suppress the message that I'm getting from the pain. I want to see what is in that message that let myself fully experience the message that's in it, and then go towards my alignment, or do both at the same time. But I don't want to bypass the message I'm getting, and I'm learning that there's an importance to that, and I'm trying to be open and have an open wondering about when I get a really painful feeling and something seems really out of sorts, what's it telling me? Like, didn't you experience that with your employees? Like when it felt so bad what you were creating that you made you really look closely at that?
It did and it didn't. I'm thinking about how did it actually play out. What actually happened was I found that if I tried to look at it, it didn't get me anywhere. I mean, this is I think one reason why I agree with what Wendy says about poking it and prodding it and so forth on the one hand, and on the other hand, when I try to poke and prod it during that activity, I don't seem to often get the solutions I'm looking for. The solutions come later at unexpected times. So perhaps the poking and prodding helps to encourage those solutions. That seems very, very likely to me. But the poking and prodding itself, during the poking and prodding process, I rarely get the kind of insight. She gets terrific insight. She'll poke and prod at something, and it'll just come to her like, I'm just sitting there in amazement listening to her story.
Yeah.
But my experience is different from that. My experience is the stuff comes to me at times that I least expected. It's almost like, she talks about how the analogy of water running through rocks as an example of non-resistance or path of least resistance, that the water will always find the easiest way to get past the rocks. It'll just kind of flow around them.
Right.
And perhaps that's what I'm doing. Maybe I have a lot of resistance in place, and having it come to me indirectly and unexpectedly is the path of least resistance for me. Maybe that's what that really is all about.
Yeah, yeah. And this is an argument, quote unquote, I've had with my partner, who's a psychologist, because she said, I said, look, water flows you said exact same analogy. I said, when water's flowing down the mountain, it comes to a big boulder. It doesn't need to go through the boulder. It goes around the boulder. And I was explaining the path of least resistance, that's how nature does everything. It follows the path of least resistance. And she was saying, in psychology, when you come against a great big resistance, you've got the foremost, work, at least from her type of training and her type of experience, and 40 years of this, she said, you have the client go through the obstacle, they go deep into that pain, feel that pain to the fullest, and it will dissipate. It will then begin to dissolve, and it will never then bother you the way it used to, once you let yourself finally be with it. And the only analogy I'm finding in the kind of law of attraction work is, I've listened to a number of Abraham things where they're saying, you've got to not deny the pain. You've got to not deny the negative feeling that's going on. Let yourself learn from it, but it's telling you that that's not how Source sees it.
This all reminds me. It reminds me of an analogy that Mike Dooley provides. Uh-huh. He provides it in one of his notes to the universe. It was one of his earlier notes from early years. It's a note about how you come to this door, and you know that everything you want is on the other side of the door, and you pull on the doorknob, and the doorknob doesn't move, or actually the door doesn't move. You pull on the door, and the door doesn't move, and you pound on the door, and you're pleading, and you're saying, open up, open up, open up, open up, and you're hitting it, you're running into it, you're doing all this stuff, you're trying to run through it, and meanwhile on the other side are all your loyal friends listening in tears, because before you even came to this earth, you said to them, whatever you do, don't open the door for me. Let me find out for myself. let me find out for myself that door is already unlocked.
Huh.
And when you think about it that way, all you have to do is turn the handle and open the door. The door will open.
Yeah. Because alignment is our true nature.
That's right.
And we are Source, and we are completely abundant, and everything that we want and need is here. And that's even what Abraham said. Worthiness is when you watch yourself manifest your connection to Source, and it shows up in your life as the manifestations of things that you want in your life, and you realize, I'm fine. I mean, I'm connected. This is all I want. I just wanted to be connected.
Yeah. And connection is it.
It's very simple, but we make it pretty hard sometimes.
We do, yeah. Speaking of connection, I want to encourage people who are listening to make the connection if they haven't already done it. Most of our listeners are subscribers. They get the episodes sent to their Android, iPhone, tablet, whatever their device is, free. Every time that we put out a new one, they automatically get it. For those of you who are new listeners, if this is one of the first episodes you've listened to, we want to encourage you, take the moment, take the time to go to our homepage at loatoday.net, and you'll find instructions right there on how to add the podcast as a subscription to your device so you can listen to us anytime you want to. And we really encourage you to do it, because we find that when people become subscribers, first of all, they listen to almost all the episodes. They download them all. That's how we know. And secondly, they get a lot out of it. That's why they keep coming back. So there's your best endorsement about why you should subscribe. People get a lot out of it. So just take a moment and subscribe. And once you subscribe, take the time to share. And Tom, before we leave for the weekend, I want to give you a chance to tell people, how do they reach you if they need a little personal coaching help?
They can go to my website, which is youarejoy.com. And I'm going to spell that youarejoy.com. And I'm now offering a free half-hour introductory coaching session that they can sign up for. And from that, we can determine if you want to do any further work with me.
Sounds great. That's good. Well, Tom, it's been a pleasure. I mean, it's sad that the week is over, but I look forward to talking to you on Monday.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be great.
Have a great weekend. We hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.